Welcome back to Crackerjack Movie Chat. I am, as always, your host, Peter J. McCluskey, joined by Robert Toom.
Howdy.
And we're, of course, here to conclude our look at Clint Eastwood. So I know last week we said today was about looking at Eastwood, everything outside of Dirty Harry and The Man with No Name, but to be honest, I feel like when we looked at the list, all of the other films he'd acted in, the ones we'd want to talk about, he directed as well. Like we thought, hey, let's look at the stuff he acted in outside of those series and the stuff he directed, but it's all the same stuff basically. So I guess we'll just jump straight into this. So I am going to kick this off with a 1977 movie called The Gauntlet. And I know we talked a bit about this last week where this almost feels like the Lost Dirty Harry movie. Like it's Eastwood as a cop again, like a cop who's kind of outside the establishment and who's going to get into a load of over the top situations, basically. So this is, of course, one Eastwood directed, one of the early ones he directed, and the plot is Eastwood plays a cop called Shockley who has basically stayed where he is in position basically for years and doesn't get on with the establishment, like very similar to Dirty Harry basically. And all of a sudden there's a new police chief in his Phoenix town, and the chief is sending Eastwood to Vegas to escort a witness back to Phoenix for a trial. And of course the witness is played by Sandra Locke, Eastwood's real life girlfriend at the time, who we talked about with Sudden Impact. And of course, it turns out this isn't just your run of the mill, let's take the witness and we'll get back to Phoenix, blah, 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 we're all done. Of course, as soon as Eastwood tries to move her, he is being attacked by the mob. Then when he tries to contact the cops and try and get an escort out of the place, the cops are immediately all turning on him, trying to hunt him down, basically destroying a house that they think he's in. So, of course, he realizes, hey, this new police chief is, of course, tied to the mob and wants to take out any connection, any possible connection. And, of course, Sandra Locke has some kind of connection, given that turns out she's a hooker who spent the night with the police chief and knows some incriminating information. So basically, it's just this really fun, well-staged action movie, basically, where lots of over-the-top set pieces. And also, I just feel like there's good chemistry in this movie between Eastwood and Locke. It's one of these cases where two characters who, as I've said, she's a hooker, he's a cop who doesn't get on with anyone. So basically two characters who realize they're in the same stagnated situation in life and who really get to trusting each other after the initial distrust in the film. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. So Robert, you seen this one?
No, I have not. The Gauntlet is now a Clint Eastwood film I have seen. So
That's cool. It's one I definitely recommend though. Like yeah, as I've said, the chemistry between Eastwood and Locke's completely different in this film than in Sudden Impact that we talked about, because there you're kind of seeing there's more, I don't know, there's more like distrust and bitterness between the two, which is probably speaking to how they were in real life at the time, because they were pretty close to breaking up, I suppose. But in this, there's heat between the two of them, and also, as I've said, just that whole feeling that, yeah, she's a hooker, but you get these like realizations that, oh, her family like has no idea where she is in life. They just think, oh, she's away somewhere else in the country, just like doing well for herself, but we don't see her that much. And of course, Eastwood has one friend in the cops basically who is Pat Hingle again, who was in Sudden Impact. So that movie kind of felt like a reunion of these three. But like I feel like this is where Eastwood as a director really you have to talk about, because you get who this character is and the situation he's in right from the start. Like you just get this opening shot of Phoenix just as the sun's rising, and Eastwood walks out of a bar straight to the police station. Just, he's not shaved, he's just, and you just totally get this idea that like, this guy's probably good at his job, but he's just going nowhere in life. And I feel like that's why the movie works more than just having these tremendous action sequences, is that you do get this bonding between the two characters, and yeah, they're both given really good performances. But yeah, it's the action scenes basically that are the highlights. There's just really well shot sequences, like where they're on a motorbike and they're being chased by a helicopter across this desert basically, and yeah, it's just a well-made fun action movie basically. And as I say, like, it is the sixth Dirty Harry movie basically, so definitely one I'd recommend. So Robert, what's your first pick for Eastwood as a director?
Well, I'm going the 1985 film of Pale Rider, which it's another Western. I feel like, as we've explained, you get three things with Clint Eastwood: Western, police, or war films. And, well, I'm going to start you with a Western, since Peter has nicely started you with a police film. So, basically, it's set in a small mountain town of La Hood, which is in California. And it's just basically about a small individual group of prospectors looking for gold. That's all it is. They're all struggling. They're poor, hard-working people, but of course, like most westerns, these poor, hard-working people can't just be left alone to work hard and try and provide for their families. You always get this really bad man who is loaded but wants the land, so he can also prospect from it. It's basically a typical story of greed, which I think most westerns kind of do go with that story of, it's either I forget this right here, in Magnificent Seven, it was like the poor Mexicans, I might be wrong, and this evil gang stealing from them. Basically, this is kind of like that, but it's not. Except they're not saved by seven people, they are saved by one mysterious man. There's a young girl called Megan who has a dog who is killed by this gang, and I think it's a very weirdly religious film, but it plays on it so well as being mysterious. So she goes to the woods to pray. And I don't think the weather's as bad as it makes out. The weather's pretty normal, and all of a sudden the thunder comes rolling and the winds come, and it play. I can't remember if that's the scene where it plays the verse from the Bible. I don't think it does, where it's like a man appeared, and that was I don't know the actual verse. Basically, it's around it's the Johnny Cash song. The man comes around. I saw the man on a pale horse. Clint Eastwood's character appears riding, and then you find that the Megan's mother, who's the young girl, she's going out with another guy because their father left them. But he's going into supplies to get the town to get supplies, where he is attacked and tried to be beaten up with this gang. This is where Clint Eastwood's character appears. At the time, he's just a stranger. He saves the boy, like the I can't remember his name, but we'll say, for example, Megan's stepfather. He steps in and saves him, and I think they bring him back up and they offer him food and stuff. So he goes away to wash, and this is the beginning of the mystery of Clint Eastwood's character. He takes off his shirt and you realise he has, I think it's 6 bullet holes, very well placed across his chest and stomach, which, I mean, I'm no medical scientist, but I'm sure taking 6 rounds now isn't great. I don't know what taking 6 rounds back then would do for you. I mean, not getting shot in the stomach was never a good thing. So, again, it creates this mystery of who is this guy? And then you find out he's got a preacher's collar, or a clerical collar, I think they're called. So he's now known as the preacher. But it's basically just how this Clint Eastwood's character, being the preacher, gives strength to this hard-working poor group. You know, despite this evil rich gang this rich guy using a gang to scare them off. And more stories go, you never really learn about the preacher's background. The film or Clint Eastwood being the director and the lead star, I would say does a very good job of never really explaining the preacher. I think certain films are good when they don't explain characters, and I think this is one of them. It's not like I think the film might be High Plains Drifter. I could be wrong, where I think Clint Eastwood was the old sheriff or the old marshal, and it explained, it was mysterious at the start, but it explains itself. This film never really explains him. So basically, after the rich guy, who I think is Hood, I think his name is, just looking at my notes, he is getting pretty miffed, we'll say, that this group isn't leaving, and they're now starting to find gold, which would strengthen the resolve even more. Sad things happen where I think there is a guy who finds gold and is shot and killed by this new gang that turns up to help Lahoud. And I think I say gang, there's a guy called Stockburn, and I think he may be a marshal or a corrupt marshal at that anyway. Because I do remember seeing a badge on one of his men. So I don't know if it's a front that they're either marshals or sheriffs, or if they actually are just corrupt. But anyway, this is the next part of the kind of weird secrecy you get. Stockton, I think, has a conversation about a preacher that he once knew, or a villain that he once knew who looks like the preacher that he shot 6 times and killed, or he believed they killed. Turns out it is Clint Eastwood's character, or it points that it's Clint Eastwood's character. There's a history between them two. It's a simple Western story of a very rich man or an evil gang tries to steal from hard-working people. But I think the reason that I think this film stands out from most others is the very weird religious and ghostly terms of who is the preacher. The film never explains it. You know, he rides off into the canyon and it's almost as if he disappears. Like, he's appeared, he's saved this people and he's done his work. You know, was he a preacher who just get caught in a bad situation, or is he, you know, the pale rider of the apocalypse or vengeance? Is he one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? The film never explains it, and I quite like that. It's almost left to your imagination. You can decide if, no, he was just a bandit who survived and went on to be a preacher, or you can think, no, maybe he was killed and he's back, you know, sent by God or whoever to save people in a harsh way. I don't know, Peter, if you've seen a Pale Rider.
Actually, I haven't seen this one, but I mean, I know, like, just like hearing stuff about it, this is the highest grossing Western of the 80s, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I know some people would like chalk that up to the fact that Westerns were kind of out in the 80s, like there weren't really many big ones, but I feel like it's more just a testament to the fact that people would pay attention if Eastwood was going back to Westerns. Yep. Like, even, as I say, in a decade, 80s, no one cares about Westerns, but oh, if Eastwood's doing it, we'll go and see that.
Shows the power of Eastwood. Yeah, I mean, it's a very good film. There is a scene where Megan has fallen into the enemy camp of bad bandits, and it's classic Westerns that you suspect, or it's implied that something quite bad's going to happen. In Westerns, it's always pretty a young girl being tracked by horrible bad men, and this big fella saves her. In my head, I can't remember if that's the fella that plays Jaws. I'm not, don't quote me, I'm not 100% sure. It probably isn't, but I just always remember this very large man stepping in, and I always just get the feeling of that must be a guy who plays Jaws, because, you know, nobody else can be a big man apart from the fella that played Jaws. But it shows you that there was that even the preacher appearing now is forcing some of the villains to rethink their actions, or maybe the guy just wasn't a bad person. This film could easily just fall into the trap of being another Western. I do think it's the heavy, mysterious religion side and Clint Eastwood that pushes it into another, that pushes it away from that and makes it its own special film.
So my next pick is a film that actually doesn't star Eastwood. This is the film that kind of kicks off, I don't know, I feel like the 2000s was like Eastwood Academy favorite. Like I know he won Best Picture, Best Director for Unforgiven back in the 90s, which we'll get to in a minute, but this one like kicked off like a period where like he was just all of his films were being nominated for stuff, and he was just thought of as one of the great living directors, really. So my next pick is Mystic River, which is one of my favorite films. It's basically a Boston crime story where you establish these three characters: Jimmy Markham, played by Sean Penn, Sean Boyle, played by Kevin Bacon, and Dave, can't remember his last name, played by Tim Robbins. So these were characters who it's established they were all good friends when they were kids, but then unfortunately Dave, the Tim Robbins character, was abducted by two guys pretending to be police officers and sexually abused. So over the years, these three have grown apart, and now we're back with them as adults. And Jimmy, Sean Penn, is like he's running like basically a convenience store, but you get the sense that he's into like criminal stuff as well. And Kevin Bacon's character is a cop, and the Tim Robbins character is basically he's like on the surface he's living his life, you know, he's married, etc. But you can just tell like he's scarred by what happened to him as a kid, and he doesn't interact with other people how you'd expect someone to interact with people, and like he doesn't read situations like the way you probably should. So into this situation, you have Sean Penn's daughter, who is just like this like girl who's like just this nice girl who everyone likes, turns up dead one morning, and that in itself is a really great sequence where you just get it gradually bit by bit of like, oh, she didn't come home last night. It's a lot like the opening episode of Twin Peaks with Laura Palmer, where in that episode, you go from, oh, Laura didn't come home last night. Oh, was she at Bobby's? No, she wasn't. Okay, where was she? So you get this really well done gradual unfolding to, yes, she is lying dead somewhere in town. And of course, this brings everyone back together because, of course, it's Sean Penn's daughter, but Kevin Bacon, being a cop, is assigned to the case. So brings everyone back together, and it just so happens that Tim Robbins was mugged the same night that the daughter was killed, and it's implied that he killed his attacker in self-defense, but there's been no body found. So this sows a seed of doubt in Tim Robbins' wife's mind, because she's thinking, oh, I think he actually killed Sean Penn's daughter. So gonna have to, if you don't mind, Robert, I'm gonna have to go into like heavy spoilers at a certain point. So this is all, it's basically just a really well done character piece and just a mood piece, basically, of just seeing how like this community reacts to like this beloved 18-year-old girl being cut down in her prime, basically. So basically the way everything unfolds, of course, Tim Robbins' wife ends up going, again, spoilers, Tim Robbins' wife just like becomes so like deteriorates to a point where she actually goes to Sean Penn and says, I think my husband killed your daughter. And then, of course, Sean Penn, being tied to crime, ends up killing Tim Robbins. But at the exact same time he's killing Tim Robbins, the real killer is being found somewhere else in town. So it just ends up with this really tragic situation where Kevin Bacon finds Sean Penn the next morning and says, oh, good news, like we found the killer. And you just see Sean Penn just totally broken by this, just thinking, man, like I really wish you'd told me this yesterday. As I say, it's a great film, great performances. Sean Penn and Tim Robbins actually both won Oscars for this and was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, but of course, year of Return of the King. So if you were nominated in Return of the King's categories, you weren't winning that year, basically. But yeah, just a great film that I just go back to a lot, and I feel like it's kind of, I mean, it's still respected, but it's not brought up as much as other films that I'd say it's on the same level with nowadays. So I feel like it's one people should go back and watch again because, yeah, I love this film. So, Robert, I'm pretty sure you said you hadn't seen this one, right?
No, I haven't. The only scene I've seen of it is always that start scene, the Sean Penn's daughter, where he's broken and they're all holding him. That's the only scene I've ever seen because it's always on Facebook or it's always on YouTube and one of those movie clip things. So that's the only. Yeah, basically, I can analyse that scene, but that's it. I've never seen the film. I knew Sean Penn won things for it. Because that was the period where I feel like Sean Penn was loved. I feel like Sean Penn's kind of disappeared a bit. I don't know if that's just me that thinks that, but
Yeah, maybe he's on the like similar trajectory to Eastwood at that point, where he's doing he goes through his career doing all sorts of films, but then you get to like the noughties, and now he's just in right. I'm like a serious actor, and you're giving me gold statues at this point kind of mode. Because pretty sure Milk was pretty soon after this that he also won an Oscar for. So, as I say, I'm a big Twin Peaks fan, as I've said, and this is like almost the noughties grim version of Twin Peaks, really, where it's a very similar story but done really differently. So, yep, definitely shows that Eastwood can just craft a story as well as just make a fun action movie or be a total badass, basically. So definitely check it out. So, Robert, what's your next choice?
well, my next one is now the war film. I will go with the 1986 film Heartbreak Ridge. This film for me just sums up Clint Eastwood's characters, really. An angry man who's out of touch with the world. That's what I get from this. So, Clint Eastwood's character is Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Highway. Now, he's nearing the mandatory retirement from the Marine Corps, but as a final hoorah, if you would, he wants to go back to his old unit, which I think is the 2nd Reconnaissance Battalion of the 2nd Marine Division. So he's heading over there, and he just starts showing you in a bus sitting himself. And this is where you meet Stitch Jones, who is the total opposite of Clint Eastwood in the sense that Clint Eastwood is like most people, wants to sit in a bus, read a magazine, or go to sleep. You don't want to talk to him doing a long scale bus journey. But this guy sits next to him and he's loud. He wants to be a rock star, but he's loud, and you can actually see the moments where Clint Eastwood's breaking. It's fantastic. Basically, they go to a diner for a break. You know, the bus is stopped because it's one of those long haul journeys in America. It's stopped. Clint Eastwood has to sit and eat dinner with this guy or lunch or something at this diner. He says, "I went to the toilet, pay the woman." Yeah. This Jones fella steals Clint Eastwood's wallet and money and tickets. It jumps back on the bus. Now, the funny thing about that is in your mind you go, they'll meet again, because you just get the feeling they'll meet, and it's great when they do meet. But anyway, Highway finally arrives at the base, and there is more bad news. His new commander, who I think Major Malcolm Powers, is just a tool. Like, he's a total tool in the sense that he thinks Highway is a problem because Highway is of the old guard. So he fires them into a reconnaissance platoon, which is a disaster because the old commander of that is retiring. So he's let them get away with murder. And when I mean this is a disaster, it's like a school group that isn't performing. They don't go out for training. They drink all the time. They're just maffing about. They're idiots, really, which isn't good for the Marine Corps, you know, that sees itself so highly in the American military. Basically, there is a massive issue with Major Powers for I think a lot of people may have an issue with. He's never seen combat. And I think Clint Eastwood's character has no respect for him, and it's not because of that, it's the way he talks Major Powers. He was from the, I don't know the exact name, but it was like supply divisions. And everyone, most people around Clint Eastwood, most people around Major Powers kiss up and love him. Clint Eastwood has no time for him. Gunny Highway has no time for it. There is a great line in it where Highway asks him, have you seen combat? And he goes, I've not had the pleasure of glorious combat. And, you know, Clint Eastwood's character, who has seen everything, basically says there is no glory, there is no pleasure to be in combat. So as much as he's a career Marine, he knows that battle and war and killing isn't, it's not a pleasure. It had to be done, but it's not this glory that this guy thinks it is. So Gunny Highway finally meets his platoon of the reconnaissance division. And as I've said, they're complete tools. They're idiots. They're tools like Powers, but a complete different type of tool. He's also got to deal with Corporal Jones, who's actually in charge. So I think, if I remember this rightly, Highway trains them, but Corporal technically is the leader who's just come out of officer school, but he's another one that's in his books and hasn't had the experience. So it's a weird one. But anyway, that's the way it is. He runs them. But Clint Eastwood ruins them, correctly ruins them, because they slack off. They're wearing sunglasses. He breaks sunglasses. He gives them all stupid names. He calls a fella Profile because he thinks he looks like a prophylactic. He basically just gives them all really stupid names, and he ruins them and makes them run, because basically, you know, they're far behind. They should be fit. They should be, you know, as they would put it, ready for war, and they're ready for nothing. Like, so this, it's a great story between the fact that Clint Eastwood has to break them to save them, but they're all fighting back the school children, so they think there's one last attempt to get rid of Clint Eastwood. You have a fella called the Swede. This man is far too big to be a Marine, especially a reconnaissance Marine. Think of the wrestler Brock Lesnar. This is the Swede. The Swede is a bodybuilder. He's massive. Clint Eastwood draps him in one. Clint Eastwood defeats him, and you know, they all run away and get ready to be exercising because they know, oh, we've been beaten, we're done. I now realise I have just missed the glorious entrance when the fella that robbed Gunny Highway realises that he's got to work under Gunny Highway. I remember for right, like, he rips out he's got earrings, he rips them out, which, yeah, I don't have piercings or earrings, but I know that'd be uncomfortable. So it's basically just about Highway trying to teach these men the basics of survival and combat, whereas Powers is using them as tools. I'm using the word tool quite a lot, but basically they're tools and they're being used as tools. Major Powers is using the reconnaissance squad to train his platoon, which isn't the way it is. It's supposed to be, you know, 50-50 fair game. If you do an exercise, well, whoever wins the exercise wins the exercise. But there's a great scene in it where they are going to do war games, I think it's called, or something about those lines. And he's marching them out, and they all stop and goes, "What's the point? This is where we're supposed to be ambushed, and we'll all get killed by Major Powers." Clint Eastwood has no time for that, so he takes them away to another spot and he attacks them. And Powers has they beat Powers' platoon, and Powers has this freak out about defying orders and you're going to break the ranks of the Marines and it's not your way. It's basically just this new lettered format of sign every form versus the old tougher version that Powers can't deal with. And that's basically it. And eventually the platoon of Clint Eastwood gets offered the chance to get rid of Clint Eastwood because he fired an AK-47 to show them and to what that was. At that time, I think that's the gun that they would have dealt with against them most, because I think it's set enough the time of the Cold War where Russia's AK-47s were everywhere. But this is where his platoon is now all banded together. They've realised that Clint Eastwood or Gunny Highway was a Medal of Honor winner and a hero, and he deserves respect. So they all now respect him and are willing to go to battle with him. So they turn him down, and you know, there is a great line. It's "Don't walk away. Don't walk away angry. Just walk away." This is what they say to one of Powers' men. It's very good. They almost turn into like a weird version of Clint Eastwood. But yeah, there's also another storyline in it. As I said, Clint Eastwood been out of touch with the world, his character. He has an ex-wife who also works in a bar near the base, and it's about him. He sees him reading women's magazines to get in touch with his feminine side to try and win her back, because obviously she says it was never great being married to a Marine, knowing if he'd come back, and him just being so tough and cold. Yeah, there's a great scene with that. I don't know if she's got a boyfriend at this time, but the bar she works in, the owner's a bit careful with her and doesn't like Clint Eastwood or Marines. I'm using the word tool a lot, but yeah, he's another tool. Anyone that goes against Clint Eastwood is a tool. So they have the whole thing out there. She finally reconciles with Clint Eastwood, and the romance is near enough back. I think she realises that Clint Eastwood wants to change, because Clint Eastwood will have to retire soon and he doesn't want to be alone. So yeah, you get that nice storyline. Then you also do get the battle scene where I think it's set in Granada. It's Grenada, the country's called. I think it's set. I'm not sure if it's a real life event. I could be wrong, but someone said it was. I think Cubans or some sort of group had kidnapped Americans, and Clint Eastwood's gang or platoon is set in to stop them, and it ends up it's very good battles, very good fighting scenes, and then you get the moments where again Clint Eastwood doesn't listen to Powers' stupid orders, because Power wants medals and all that heroic valor rubbish, whereas Clint Eastwood wants to just get through this with his men alive. One of his men dies, Profile is killed. And there's an artillery and an airstrike. It's an airstrike, and Clint Eastwood fires a flare up to show where they are, so they all are not just evaporated and killed. And then they go on and take the hill, all heroic. And Powers comes and says, "You defied my orders, I'm going to ruin you," or some rubbish like. He's not happy that he didn't get to have combat, that stupid thing. But then their leader turns up and says, "Well, no, actually, Clint Eastwood was right. How dare you stop the advance of the Marines and try and destroy the aggressive nature of Marines?" All that kind of Marine talk. Turns out this guy fought with Clint Eastwood years ago when they were younger, so he knows him. I mean, I think I've really just ran through the full plot, basically. It's a very fun... do you know what it is? It's another movie where Clint Eastwood is funny without being funny. Like, there's a lot of funny scenes in it, and Clint Eastwood has just been angry in it, but I think it's that weird context around Clint Eastwood's characters that make him funny, much like we've spoke about in Dirty Harry. He seems to be funny without being funny. It's just because everyone around him is panicking and he's just this cold as ice figure. But yeah, I don't know if you've seen Heartbreak Ridge. Or...
We seem like we're going through a theme here, because no, I have not seen Heartbreak Ridge, and we swear, like when we get into the second half of our picks, we have seen each other's picks at a certain point, but I feel like it's working well, because what's the point of this show other than to like recommend films folk haven't seen? So I feel like even if picking up stuff from each other is good as well. So yeah, sounds like another good Clint Eastwood film. Like, yeah,
it is. I mean, it's madness when I watch Pale Rider, and then I go, my goodness, that this only came out a year after Pale Rider, Heartbreak Ridge. I personally think that he looks different, so different in two versions, but I suppose that's the way the film is. But no, very good. Directing wise, because Clint Eastwood directed this as well, but it's weird that I haven't really found a Clint Eastwood kind of directorial. I've never found it's a Clint Eastwood film. I've never been able to find a kind of a point like now, it's a Michael Bay film, because big daft explosions kind of thing. But I would say this is another very good Clint Eastwood directed film. I think all the characters are well done. You hate Powers. You continue to hate Powers. Clint Eastwood has a very good arc where he realises he can't be angry all the time, and he does maybe need to listen. And I know that sounds really stupid, but how many people out there are just angry all the time? It's a simple arc. You also have the man I said earlier, the one that was the idiot, who wanted to just be a rock star. He now says at the end, in fact, no, I'm going to become a career Marine. This is what I want to do in my life and help people. I mean, I recommend it if you like Clint Eastwood's war films. It's not these World War II films, but it's a good film. There's not a lot of combat in it. I think the last 20 minutes is the combat, but the build up to it with the training camp is the best bit. It's a great film.
Cool. So with my next pick, we're really getting into what I alluded to a minute ago. We're getting into Eastwood as Oscar-winning director, basically directing Best Picture winners, which I feel like we were talking a minute ago about, you were talking about you can't really define Eastwood's style as a director, and I feel like it's a case where like he's really obviously had a long and varied career, and I feel like he's someone who's really taken lessons from everything he's done. Like you obviously hear stories about him working with Leone on the Man with No Name trilogy and just butting up against the fact that Leone was so meticulous with everything and that wanted to do like 100 takes for everything. And then when Eastwood starts making his own films, he of course says, no, we're going to like do this concisely and get down to the point of everything. And I feel like you see that as he goes through making kind of pulpy movies, like genre stuff like Leone might have made, but then like he develops into this prestige director who can just take any type of story and make a really compelling film about it. So my next pick is Million Dollar Baby, which is the 2004 Best Picture winner, of course. And yeah, do you ever have one of those films where like you like watch it and then you step away from it and you know like intellectually, yeah, that's a good film and I remember really liking it, but then you come back to it years later and you just realize, oh, this movie's amazing. Like I'd just forgotten how amazing it was. That's just what happened with me when I rewatched Million Dollar Baby a few days ago. So everyone knows the story. Eastwood plays Frankie Dunn, who is a veteran cutman in the boxing game, who has just been at the side of so many fighters, been at the side of so many rings, and now he runs a gym and he is training a prospective heavyweight champion of the world, who is of course played by Mike Coulter, who played Luke Cage on Netflix. But you get the sense that Frankie is cautious. He wants to protect his fighters, and like the character Mike Coulter plays is kind of resenting that because he feels like Frankie is holding him back from potential title shots he could have. And yeah, of course, Mike Coulter leaves, but all in the background of the first half hour of the film, you've been seeing this character Maggie Fitzgerald, played by Hilary Swank, who is this female boxer who I think is about 31, 32 when the film starts. And she's always there in the gym and just talking to Eastwood as he passes by, going, "Oh, do you want to train me? Like, I think like you, like I'd do good if you trained me." And he's just like, "No, I don't train girls." And just the classic like Eastwood character, which again is like playing on the fact what we're talking about Eastwood is like aware of prejudices and plays on those, and it's not a prejudiced film. It's not him like saying, "Oh, women shouldn't be boxers." It's him commenting on people who would look at women and say they shouldn't be boxers. So, like, of course, you get like Morgan Freeman, who's a former fighter and friend of Eastwood's, who works at the gym, saying, "Oh, you probably should look into her. She's got a lot of heart, etc." And of course, you get this really awesome scene where like they're about to close up. They've just been arguing in the office, and you just get that Hilary Swank's character is still out there. It's really late at night, but she's still there. She's still training, and like you get this confrontation between her and Eastwood where she's dropped the kind of plucky attitudes and is just telling him straight, "Look, like I come from nothing and I've got nothing, and but I'm good at this. I could be better at this if you trained me." And like you get that like he's starting to connect to her really, and you get like throughout all of this you get like a lot of backstory about, oh, Eastwood had some massive fight with his daughter. years ago, and he's always sending her letters that are returned unopened. So you get the like feeling like, oh, he like kind of starts to bond with Maggie as though she is the daughter he lost. And of course, like you just get more of the characters as this goes along with the revelation that, oh, Morgan Freeman got really badly beat in his last fight and lost the use of his eye, and Eastwood feels it's because he didn't throw in the towel at the time, and that's why he's been so cautious ever since. But of course, we get through. He eventually like trains Hilary Swank a bit, and like, but like isn't like wanting to manage her right away. Like he's still cautious in that way, but as soon as he like gets her a manager and sees how he's managing her in her fights, like he steps in at a certain point and says, "No, you're doing this crap." And she's saying, "Okay, are you managing me now?" And he's like, "Okay, yes, I guess I'm your manager at this point." And yeah, it's a great character film, basically, of people who have just got so little as far as like personal connections go, coming together, like in the same way as Rocky, another boxing film, where that's about that character taking his one shot, regardless of if it's boxing or some other avenue. This is just a story about these people finding kind of like surrogate family in each other, and that's really what the film's about. Is about you don't choose your like you have your like biological family, but you can choose your family basically, and the family you choose is who brings the best out of you basically. So it's just a really great film, really great character piece, and I do want to go into the ending at a certain point, but first of all, I want to say, Robert, have you seen this at all?
Yes, I have. Finally, we have a film we both have seen. Yeah, that's just a sad film. It's a good film. Uh, I'll try not to go into the ending now when I think about it, but no, the characters are great. Hilary Swank was brilliant because she was also like a waitress, wasn't she, at the time? Uh, and then is it not got Jay? I can't remember his second name was Jay.
Oh, Jay
It's like
Baruchel,
yeah,
he was in
he
Tropic Thunder, wasn't
yeah,
he? Yeah.
yeah he kind of hangs around, helps out, and but he's not. I don't want to say he's not right, but he's not.
He's kind of like the Tommy Wiseau of boxing, where
Yeah, he's a
he's got the want and the heart to do it, but he has no idea, he has no
uh,
skill in it
yeah,
whatsoever.
and he's a nice enough fella that wants to work, and that was a great scene. If I'll talk about a scene, that's the scene I'll probably talk about. Uh, where I think he's trying away, cleaning up, and help Morgan Freeman's got a lot of time for him, and he's not then getting bullied. He gets invited to the ring by another boxer who beats him up a bit harshly, and then Morgan Freeman steps in and shows you that despite the fact Morgan Freeman probably can't see like this distance away from him, he still has his skill, and I'm sure he beats the guy up as well. It's a very good scene, and it shows that even though Clint, and there's another great scenes where Clint Eastwood is meant to be all angry, and a classic Clint Eastwood wants nothing to do with people. He cares about people in his gym that need to be cared about. It's a great film. Man, I remember I first watched it, and then I watched it again, and it was the same. I started to remember more and go, God, this is a great film, actually. I'll let you talk about the ending if you'd like.
Yeah, well, first you mentioned the elder boxer who's beating up on Danger, as they call him, the Jay Baruchel character.
That's it.
The elder boxer demonstrates there's a lot of folk in this film from later on. Like the elder boxer is Anthony Mackie, who's Falcon,
That's it.
and also hanging out with him is Michael Pena, who is Luis from Ant-Man.
Oh,
So
nice, it is.
movies just
Well, there you
full
go.
of movies just full of folk who weren't famous then but are famous now, basically. But
Interesting.
yeah, we will get into a big spoiler alert. So as we say, we both love the film, but if you don't want to know the ending, just skip ahead to the next one. So we of course get this really tragic ending, which I mean, it was really weighing on my mind the full time rewatching the film of just thinking, oh, I'm so like invested in these characters, but it's going to go so bad by the end. So of course, Hilary Swank gets the big title match, and we've seen her opponent is known for breaking rules in the ring just through side moments on the TV throughout the film. Of course, Swank like gets a few like decisive punches in at her, and the other opponent in between rounds ends up punching her, and Hilary Swank is of course forced to the ground and cracks her neck on the stool and ends up paralyzed. So yeah, it's just a really tragic ending basically, but you do get the sense that like when Hilary Swank is in hospital after this, paralyzed, like you get this moment where she asks Eastwood to help her commit suicide because she feels like, well, I've proved everything I wanted to, that I could be a boxer, that I could have success and actually do something with my life. And yeah, as I say, it's because you're so engaged with these characters across the film that you hate that they're not going forward together, basically. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to really sum up all the feelings you have at the end of this film, but yeah, sad film, but rewarding film just in how it's made and the performances. And yeah, as we say, Best Picture winner. So don't know if I'd say this is my absolute favorite film of 2004. Like, I'd hold up Before Sunset, which was snubbed aside from a screenplay nomination. But yeah, it's up there. It's a really great film. Really know her, baby. So, Robert, you have another Oscars favourite in its year, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, I have the 1992 Unforgiven, which is quality. Like, this is a great film. I think in terms of it, we'll just jump straight to the awards for this one. The film won 4 Academy Awards. It won Best Picture and Best Director. It won Best Supporting Actor for Gene Hackman, and it won Best Film Editing for the editor Joe Cox. Eastwood was actually also nominated for Best Actor, but lost it to Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman. Now, having seen both films, I'm not happy with that. I like Scent of a Woman, but I do have my issues with Al Pacino's performances and a lot of things, and there's only so much that whoa can get me before I start getting annoyed. But anyway, exactly that rubbish. The over the top. No, we're not here to start panning Al Pacino how he likes to be over the top in a lot of films. Clint Eastwood not win this, but anyway, this is a great film. I think he also dedicated this film to Sergio Leone and Don Seagal, if I can say that guy's name right. The film was also added in 2004 to the United States Film Register and the Library of Congress as being deemed culturally historically. So the film has made a lasting impact on at least American cinematography, should we say. So the plot is set, I think, in 1888. Yeah, I've got 1888 here. Whether I'm right or wrong, who knows. But anyway, I think the film starts off with it's in a bar. I think they were called bars back then. I'm not sure. Basically, it's they also kind of happen to be brothels at the same time. And basically, it's these ladies or prostitutes, whatever. We'll go by the word prostitute. That's what they're called in the film. No here for your semantics of sex workers. They're called prostitutes in the film, and that's what they'll be. One of the lassies is cut up pretty badly with a knife, and the sheriff, Little Bill, who is played by Gene Hackman, who, by the way, as I said, won Best Supporting Actor, was brilliant in this. For being a sheriff, he's not a good guy, not at all. In fact, no one in this film is the good guy, and this is what was so great about this film. No one's good. It's just who was the baddest to survive. It's like who was tough enough. It really, to me, paints the Western how I think a lot of people believe the Western might have been. Like, rarely was there anyone truly good. It was just who was the lesser evil at the time. Basically, I think for compensation, Little Bill says these men must hand over horses. Now, the prostitutes are rightly miffed because this woman is scarred and cut up and she can't work now. Not only that, she's scarred for life for something, for nothing. Because some nut job, or I don't know what was wrong with the boy. So the prostitutes managed to get together £1,000 for a reward, which is a lot of money in 1880. And then I think it goes on to this small farm, if I remember rightly. Yeah, where you meet a young man who calls himself the Schofield Kid, who's seeking to recruit Clint Eastwood's character, who is called William Money, who was an ex-gunslinger from years ago. He never pretends now that he was a nice man. It's open that he was notorious outlaw, a murderer, but that's away now. He's trying to be repentant, but again, not shying away from the things that he'd done. He's a widower with 2 children. He initially, I think, refuses to help, but realises his farm isn't doing too well. The pigs are unwell. And he manages to get his friend Ned. Can't remember Ned's second name, but Ned's played by the brilliant Morgan Freeman. So the cast, I think, straight off the bat is fantastic. And they managed to catch up with the Schofield Kid. You also meet this writer, who I can't remember who plays the writer, but I always see the actor. He's following gunslingers across America to write a novel.
Yeah, Saul Rubinek, wasn't it? Yeah.
Aye, the kind of heavy set fella.
Donnie from Frasier. That's all I know. That's what I know him from. Basically.
There we are. He makes. He's with. I'm sure he's already with a fella called English Bob, who is also fantastic in this. It's basically he's following gunfighters around to learn their story, to see what they'll do, and he's writing a book. And yeah, you see a wee quick scene of him shooting away, blah blah blah, showing you how fast he is. They arrive in town and they haven't handed over their guns, and this is where Gene Hackman appears. And I think Gene Hackman knows who he is. He knows who English Bob is. English Bob's reputation for shooting Chinamen, as they're called in the film, which would be, to me and you, Chinese immigrants that went over to America to work. I think mostly on railways and stuff like that for a new life. He was killing Chinamen and the likes, so he is an outlaw in himself, but Gene Hackman has no time for him. Now, a good sheriff would say, you've come into this town with guns, you've broke the rules, give me your guns, you need to spend the night in jail, blah, 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 and we'll discuss your murders and your crimes, and you're arrested. Gene Hackman battles him. I'm not going to say beats him to death, but he beats him in a very embarrassing manner. He's all bruised, he's nearly knocked teeth out, left him in the mud. Again, just really pushing the point that Gene Hackman, despite being the sheriff, is not a good man. The prostitutes are also getting a lot of hassle from the town. I think Gene Hackman is annoyed at these alleged visitors that are turning up because he's perceived that English Bob has turned up for the prostitutes. I can't remember if that's ever implied that English Bob did turn up in the town for the prostitutes' bounty. But anyway, Gene Hackman has set this in that his ruling will not be overruled, even though it was unjust and rubbish. So Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman and the Schofield Kid, they turn up at the town. So I think now it's their turn to collect the bounty. The weather's horrible and Clint Eastwood is sick. The Morgan Freeman and the Schofield Kid, who's actually I can never remember now, they are up visiting the prostitutes. They are paying for services while Clint Eastwood is unwell in the bar. This is again Gene Hackman appears, sees his gun, doesn't recognise who Clint Eastwood's money is, as a notorious gangster. I don't think he's a gangster, notorious outlaw. Don't think he does realise. But again, he's a defenceless old man, basically, who's unwell. That's what it looks like. And because he's got a gun, he's also beaten and thrown at the street. So the way Ned, who's Morgan Freeman's character, and the kid pick him up and they manage to ride off. And they wait for him to recover. Then they go hunting for the one of the men. They catch up with him and they shoot the horse. At this point, the history of it all, Morgan Freeman's character is done. He can't kill anymore. It's too much for him. He wants to just live a peaceful life. So Clint Eastwood starts doing the shooting. He manages to hit the boy. And as I said earlier, when I talked about taking 6 rounds to the chest, he hits the fella right in the stomach or just around the abdomen area, which I think knows that that's killed him because of where it's damaged his organs. So that boy bleeds out. It's a very good scene where he's a young man and he's crying, and obviously because he's dying and he's in so much pain, but at the same time you hard to feel sorry for him because he's been one of the ones that slashed up a woman for nothing, really. So they move on. Morgan Freeman says he's done. He can't do it. So Morgan Freeman rides away. So Clint Eastwood and the kid go to finish off the other fella who's just happens to be in the toilet, but he has a lot of protection because of, I think they know he's coming. So back in the days, the toilets were outside the outhouses. I think the kid blasts the guy while he's doing the toilet. Nice way to go. The way I'd like to go, if I'm honest with you, sitting in the pan, blasted. Then you have more. The film is very good, dealing with kind of psychological and PTSD and the issues of death. The Schofield kid who talked to a good game says that was the first person he's ever killed, and he can't do it. So he leaves now, and he says, "I can't believe you've killed all the people you've killed." So anyway, you think that's it then. That boy's run off. He can't deal with it. He doesn't want the money. Morgan Freeman's character's away home. He's had enough, and Clint Eastwood's going to go and collect the bounty to give his half to Morgan Freeman, like he agreed. But this is where I think the film takes a great turn. As much as I don't want to ever see, spoiler alert, as much as I never want to see Morgan Freeman die in a film, this is a great twist. And again, point to the factor that no one in this film is good. There's absolutely no one. Maybe the prostitutes, but none of the characters of the sheriff or the bounty hunters, Clint Eastwood's character, is good. No one's good. The prostitutes then tell Clint Eastwood that he got caught by Gene Hackman's gang of deputies. He was beaten. I think, was he hanged or shot? He's killed anyway, and he's left outside the bar. He's left outside the saloon, not bar, saloons they're called. I knew I'd get there eventually. He's left outside the saloon in an open coffin with a sign that says, "This is what happens to assassins." So Clint Eastwood arrives, prime Clint Eastwood. He's angry and he wants vengeance and he's afraid of nothing. He says, "Who owns this shithole?" I think that's his words. He kills the barman straight off. "Bye, is it yours?" "Yeah, boom, that's what happens for hanging my friend outside." Gene Hackman gives it the big, "You shot an unarmed man, blah, blah, blah." He pulls the gun on Gene Hackman, to which all these other guns come out from some people. And it's Gene Hackman gives the line, "Once he shoot me, you put him down like a dog." And it's a great scene. Basically, again, spoiler alert, Clint Eastwood goes absolute ham with his gun, shoots, I think with his other shotgun shell, blasts. Gene Hackman pulls out his revolver and just starts picking them off because he has nothing to fear. He doesn't fear death. He's so calm, he's so calculated, he's experienced, nothing fears it, whereas everyone else is panicking because Gene Hackman was seen to be the most heroic fighter that they had. So they're now panicking because he's just been shot and all over the place. So Clint Eastwood starts dispatching people left, right, and centre. He finds the wee writer, and the writer's like, "Oh, in my studies, I've learned that the first person to always be shot is the most dangerous. Did you know that Little Bill, which is Gene Hackman's character, is the most dangerous?" And he goes, "No, I just get lucky, really." And he just pure downplays the whole thing. Gene Hackman's character's still breathing, not for long. I think he has a couple of bad words to say, and Clint Eastwood puts the shotgun in his mouth and fires away. So, yeah, nice. And then he threatens people and he leaves. He says, "If anyone pot shots me, I will burn this whole town to the ground. And if I come back and his body hasn't been buried properly, I will burn this town to the ground. If those prostitutes are harmed, I will burn this town to the ground." And you're implied that the town folk done what Clint Eastwood said. They never shot him. They would have buried him and they never affected the prostitutes anymore. And you get the ending, very weird ending, where I think there's a woman standing at the farm, but I think it's the mother of the widow, the woman that died, if I remember rightly. And it just explains that Clint Eastwood and the farm had failed, and they went to San Francisco to become a goods of distribution, which is a pretty weird ending, I think. But I think it's trying to imply that he did manage to move on away from being an outlaw. But again, this was an amazing film. Like, I see how it won its awards. And why did Clint Eastwood not win the best actor, Peter? Why? Why did they need to go to Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman?
Yeah, let's face it, it's because the Academy, they do too much wrong that they have to apologise so often, and giving Pacino that Oscar as an apology for all those Oscars he should have won in the 70s, like Godfather, Serpico. Any of these films we would have preferred, and we would have been totally happy that Pacino had won for, but yeah. Yeah, as you say, Unforgiven, it's a great film. Like, Eastwood has an eye for storytelling. Like, he's not just this actor who decided to be in control of the films he was making. Like one thing I always go back to is, like, I know you like see Gene Hackman torturing Morgan Freeman, but I'm pretty sure after that scene, the next time you see Morgan Freeman is when Eastwood discovers his body hanging there, and that's like totally the right way of doing that, and just shows the eye that Eastwood has. And yeah, it's kind of it's a strange film as well, because it's not what you'd expect from a Clint Eastwood Western, if you know what I mean, where, like, the first time I watched it, I was kind of like, I didn't know what to expect really, but like it's really grown on me in subsequent viewings. But like the first time, it's just kind of like you're expecting this rip-roaring Clint Eastwood action like The Man with No Name trilogy, but really the film is about this guy who tries to come back and be the gunslinger he was in his youth, but almost dies on the way. Not that almost dies during the action, almost dies on the way to the action. So I feel like this is Eastwood trying to put a final note on the Western genre, basically, where, yeah, he's just trying to like paint this picture of this world where, as you say, no one's good or bad. Well, maybe everyone's bad and no one's good, basically. And yeah, Eastwood is the hero of this story because he just happened to be against the villains of this story, but that doesn't make him a good guy. And in any other situation, he would be the villain, basically. And I know some people think this is going to be like demeaning to use this analogy, but it almost feels like this is the Dark Knight Returns of Westerns, if you know what I mean. Like, we always compare Eastwood to Batman, basically, but this is like showing that story of a character coming out of retirement and trying to rediscover his mission and who he was. And you see all the struggles that would go into that. But you get this really great, like, more humanist story than you'd expect from that genre. And yeah, I think I mentioned, it almost feels like this is like the culmination of every Western he's ever done. Like, this is The Man with No Name at the end of his life. This is Josie Wales at the end of his life. And I don't know, maybe even like following that metaphor through, if this is like the culmination of Eastwood's Westerns, maybe that traveling to San Francisco at the end of the film is him saying, so the legend of Clint Eastwood as a Western legend was concluded, and the legend continues in San Francisco, where the spirit of this character will become Harry Callahan. So, yep. I don't know, there's just so many ways to think of this film. It's a great film. Cool. So my final pick of the night is Gran Torino, which, yeah, I feel like this is kind of another culmination. It's the culmination of that period I was talking about where Eastwood was just in the spotlight as a director. So, yeah, really simple story, this one, I'd say. It's basically Clint Eastwood plays Walt Kowalski, who is a retired Korean War veteran who lives in, pretty sure, is it Detroit he's in? Pretty sure.
Yeah, because it was the Ford factory, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course.
I think that's where they came out of.
Yeah, so he lives in Detroit among the Hmong community, which of course brings, like, what we're talking about Eastwood's awareness of social issues really and trying to tackle social issues where, yeah, because he's a Korean War veteran, he has this real distrust of everyone around him in the Hmong community. And of course, you also focus on these two young Hmong characters, Thao and his sister Sue, who Thao is a teenager who's being kind of roped into his cousin, I'm pretty sure, is a gang member, and Thao is kind of being pulled into that life. And part of that, a sort of initiation for that life, is he is dared basically to go and try and steal Eastwood's prized Gran Torino, which of course we all know how that goes. Like you get the famous "get off my lawn" sequence, and yeah, really you get into like a sort of similar situation to his character in Million Dollar Baby, where he like sort of develops a bond with these two teenagers because his own family don't care about him or just waiting for him to die so they can inherit everything. And yeah, just similar themes of your family becoming who you choose to be your family, basically. It's just, as I say, it's just a really simple, well-made film. And like, I will talk about, I know I mentioned, like, there's sort of like a thematic conclusion to the Dirty Harry series with this film, but I feel like I need to get into the ending of the film to talk about that. So, Robert, what are your thoughts on Gran Torino in general?
Yeah, Gran Torino's it's another one of these modern films where it's very racial, but again, as we've spoke about in many films and many stuff, it's not racist for the sake of being racist. The whole film is like a, as we said, it's like an almost a kind of a view on society and how they can't accept new cultures because this culture has, this area predominantly became the Haman society, say that right? And it's like they brought their culture and stuff like that. And Clint Eastwood's character, you say, being a very old war hero and everything's American. He drives Ford to work for Ford. Doesn't like, the fact his son drives a Toyota, or a Honda or something. Hates that. But again, there is a lot of racial terms in it, but it's never, you never feel like Clint Eastwood's being racist for the sake, for allow him to be a racist character. It's because I feel at the end of the film, the racial slurs become less hateful and more almost joking or even loving with the people. I know that you could sit and go, you can't make racial terms loving. You just need to watch the film and you get what I mean. It becomes a sign of endearment. He eventually doesn't use it as much, but it is like Million Dollar Baby in the sense that he wants nothing to do with what's going on inside his world, his garden, but eventually cares for the community and is looked, is almost loved for the work that he has done for the community. Yeah, if I have to talk about this ending, I'll let you do it, Pierre.
Yeah, so of course we get to a point where the tensions with the Cousins gang have reached such a point where Eastwood is going to go and confront them. And this is where like I feel like this is the real conclusion of the Dirty Harry series, because again you get the feeling of Eastwood letting this gang choose their own fate, basically, where he approaches them. And yet this is just one of the great endings of the last 20 years, I think, where he of course approaches them, he's taunting them, then he very calmly reaches inside his jacket pocket. Of course, he's not reaching for anything, is the thing. Like, he's just reaching for something innocent, not a gun or anything. But of course, they've opened fire and killed him, which, yeah, is a complete reversal of what happens in most Dirty Harry films, where, he has like he gives Scorpio the chance to go for the gun, or the chance not to go for the gun. But of course, as soon as Scorpio goes for the gun, he's going to shoot him. This is the case where, like prove you're going to do the right thing and not shoot me down. But like, as soon as you've shot me down, you're going down, basically. And just, yeah, it's it's just a totally satisfying ending. And if this is like Eastwood's last film in this kind of mold, it feels like the wrap up to that character in the same way that Unforgiven was a wrap up to Eastwood as the cowboy, basically. And of course, we get the extra tag of he's, of course, his family go to the will reading and they've been left nothing, which is fantastic. And of course, Thau's been left the Gran Torino. And yep, it's just another well-made film where Eastwood understands character and storytelling. And yeah, another one. If you've not seen it, then why are you listening to this spoiler section? Just go and watch the film.
Yeah. Also deals with death as well, like the perception of death. I think he's got cancer, isn't he? He is dying. But it's great. So he's not afraid. He knows what needs to be done to save these people because he knows he can't go just shooting people. It's a great film. The family, I so hate the family. There is the great, there's one thing I love about Clint Eastwood, and it's the moments that you can see a Clint Eastwood snap. And is it the son and the daughter turn up? Sorry, the son and the wife turn up to say, oh, we've got you this big remote for his birthday or some rubbish like that. And the bottom of this, these older remotes that, maybe people with hard see can see what they're doing, a thing to reach and all that. And then they try and sell them this thing to move into a condo, like an old, a kind of retirement condo. He snaps and flings me out the house. It's great, but you don't see what he said. They just walk out the house going, can't believe the things he said. But I think that's also the human community. It brings him in, and they're all just feeding him constantly, and he loves it. It's a great film. I think it shows that, as you say, your family can be whoever you want, whoever looks after you. And shout out the fact that his son was in it. I do like the way Clint Eastwood has worked his son, not doing the Will Smith thing of just Jaden has to star in things. Because you could argue that Scott Eastwood hasn't really been in a lot of big things. He's been in big things, but I wouldn't say he's ever been a big role, because I think he could push that card going, well, Clint Eastwood's my father. But he hasn't really, because he had a smaller role in Fury. He had a very small role in this. And he has starred in films that you would say aren't big films. So I like the fact that he's never been, that Clint Eastwood hasn't just flung him in and again used the Will Smith thing.
Cool. So that neatly brings us to the last pick of the night. So Robert, what is the last pick of the night?
I have went for a film where Clint Eastwood is not in, but he is directing it. I have went for the 2014 American Sniper, which is a biographical war drama about the sniper Chris Kyle, who I think is known as America's deadliest marksman. I think he's logged in something like 255 kills from like 4 tours of the Iraq War, although I think 160 of them are officially confirmed. Even still, that's 160 is still a big number, so yeah, the man was very good at being a marksman. The film also deals with that. The film actually does deal quite well with a set of PTSD, because as it goes on, it shows you the levels it deals with his family. The film also drew quite a lot of criticism because of the use of snipers during wars. I don't think a lot of that was needed, if I'm totally honest with you. I know Piers Morgan had an issue saying, I think one of his a long family member was shot by a German sniper in World War II. I don't mean to come across as cold and cruel, but I personally don't see what the problem is, why you've got to drag that in. I think a lot of the criticism leveled towards the film was just rubbish. That's my personal view. But anyway, the film stars Bradley Cooper, which a lot of people at first were a bit like, really? Bradley Cooper? I think a lot of people wanted Mark Wahlberg. Now, having watched the film, I couldn't see it. I think I don't know if this was the same time that the Lone Survivor film was out with Mark Wahlberg, and I don't know if people just always thought it. For me, American Sniper, like Lone Survivor, is based on a true story as well, but Lone Survivor feels a lot more actiony. This is what would be, Clint Eastwood could have went proper action, 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 but this film has its moments of action, but it's not a lot. It's much like Unforgiven. It will give you action and you'll enjoy the action, some of it, but it's not about the action, it's about the human being. And I really do enjoy these types of war films like Jarhead. You know, Jarhead dealt with the soldier and the psychological effect of war. But anyway, so Chris Kyle was, the film starts in text, showing you Chris Kyle being raised by his father in Texas, being a sniper and stuff, how to shoot a gun and stuff. And then, he wanted to be this rodeo proper cowboy Texan. He has a rodeo with his brother. They return home from the rodeo and he finds his wife or his girlfriend at the time sleeping with another man. So he leaves. She kicks her out. And then I think it was in the 1998 bombings, a US embassy was bombed. So Chris Kyle has signed up to become a US Navy SEAL, which I think he did do at quite a fair age. They were calling him the old man of the group. But he becomes a Navy SEAL, he passes through, and this is when he meets Tara, who becomes his wife later. And they deal quite nicely with that. It's a nice romance. It's very well done. But then he's sent to war, and I almost feel as if the film really does take you from that. It changes this nice comfort with his family, with her, to you're in a war zone now, mate. His first kills were a woman and a young boy. This scene was so well done because there is obviously issues about showing children being shot. Even The Walking Dead get that levelled against it. That scene where they shot a child. Even Dawn of the Dead got it for showing you. It's like even showing you children as monsters is pretty bad. So the factor that it shows you, the scene is there is a patrol going down a road, and this is one of the more memorable scenes of the film. It's so well done. This is a scene where it's not glorifying the war. It's just showing you what people have to go through. And the woman has said, given the young boy I think it was like a Russian tank shell or an anti-grenade or something. It was an older grenade, and he's to run towards the tank and the soldiers. The shots on Chris Kyle, these snipers are given a lot of responsibility to define whether it's a gun or a bomb or something that's not harmful. And he takes the shot. The mother then runs, tries to fling it. He shoots her as well. But again, in that scene, there's nothing really playing. It's just sheer silence because it's kind of zooming in on Chris Kyle's or Bradley Cooper's face, and the Marine that's with him, or the soldier, tries to go, "Well done, what a shot," and he goes, "Get your fucking hands off, mate." It's almost as if he's just realised what he's done, and he doesn't see this as a great thing. He's shot a woman and a child, but he does, in a sense of duty. He knows that he had to, because if he didn't, that tank could have been blown up and about 8 men could have died. It's a very weird film where it's like Chris Kyle had to look at it as if if he can shoot an enemy, he will have saved a US soldier. And the film deals with that all the way through it. He becomes the legend by other people. And he always wants to help the basic soldiers. He says, we're SEALs, we can show them and we can save them. It really does create this Chris Kyle was a war hero, that he wanted to protect people. When it comes home, because when he finishes his tours, it becomes a different story. He's focused on the war still with the news, despite the fact that his son is born. He's trying to be the loving father and the loving husband, but at the same time is worried about the war and the fact that he believes that if he's not there, American Marines and American soldiers and stuff are dying because he can't get the shot. So he's promoted to Chief Petty Officer. He goes back for his more tours. I think this is a point in time in the film where he starts showing you another sniper on the enemy side, which I think he was an Olympic shooter for Syria. And it was basically another one of these warlord criminals that was sadly killing innocent people, and anyone that tried to help the Americans or point out who he was. And again, the film really is graphic with this. You know, there's a drill getting into a child's head, and it's graphic. It doesn't hide away. Again, I think this was Clint Eastwood wanting to show you that the war isn't lovely. It is a horrible event. You are going to see horrible things. As the film goes on, and Clint Eastwood, Chris Kyle, does more tours, more of his men, or one of his friends is shot. I think one of his friends eventually dies. You can see it all, especially when he comes home, it really taking the toll on him. And Bradley Cooper does a fantastic job of this. You can see it in his eyes that he's not suited to being in a non-combative zone. He can't deal in the relaxed nature, if you would, of civilian life. There's a scene, I think, where he's driving down the motorway and he sees a small van, which I think is predominantly used in these countries. He kind of freaks out. He's watching it all the time, thinking it could be a car bomb or an attack, even though he's in America, and he actually feels safer and more comfortable being in a war zone, which I think kind of is one of the effects of PTSD, that people like that have to live that lifestyle, because that's now what they've been comfortable to. But I think he eventually does leave the Navy SEALs, Chris Kyle. I think he did leave them at a point to try and help others. He left, and it shows you in the scene, he still has these moments of weird violence. I think the dog bit his son, but not aggressively, just a wee nip, and he's slapping the dog about really aggressively. But it's almost as if he's not clicking. He still has a lot of aggression and a lot of stuff to deal with. So he goes to a psychiatrist, and that's when you get the scenes where he's found a way to try and help other veterans who've maybe lost their legs or other people dealing with issues. He helps them to shoot and tries to help them live their lifestyles. And I think that was a thing Chris Kyle really did push. Before I get to the ending, which is very well known around the world, I don't know, Peter, if you want to come in and say anything about the film.
Yeah, sure. This is another good one. Like, I haven't revisited it since I saw it in the cinema, but I remember liking it. And as you say, a lot of the controversy is people not listening, really, or people wanting to categorize something without even watching it. Like, I saw this film completely not seeing any trailers, not much advertising or anything, just because, hey, it's Clint Eastwood's new movie. And yeah, I enjoyed it on those terms. And then after that, I get into the controversy of people saying, oh, this horrible propaganda piece. It's like, no, you've just read the title and read that into it. It's not a propaganda piece. It's about a guy with PTSD. And yeah, you can't comment on it like that unless you actually know what you're talking about. But yeah, well-made film. And what really comes back to me is, I'm not sure if they're the same scene. As I say, it's been a while since I've watched it. I remember one just well-made action scene in a sandstorm that was really intense. And also I remember the scene where I think he's on the phone with his wife, Sienna Miller, and from wherever he is in the war, and all of a sudden a fight breaks out, and he has to stop talking to her, but she's still on the phone. She's in the middle of a car park or something, and she just collapses and starts crying right there. And it's just, yeah, it's just it just shows that Eastwood can step into a multitude of genres and just do justice to them. But, yeah, it's a good film.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's what I put this film in the same bracket of Jarhead and no, forgot it now. No, the one about the bomber. The guy that was disarming the bombs.
Hurt Locker.
Hurt Locker, that was it. I knew I was going to get there eventually. It's a film where you have your small bits of action, but it really deals more through the psychological event of the human being at war. But yeah, the ending is, I think the ending is the real story as well, because this is what really happened. It's very sad. It's just, he really is getting right into this whole helping Marines in another way now. If you can't save them, protect them in Iraq or Afghanistan, as a sniper, he can help save them with their injuries and their PTSDs. He leaves to spend time with Eddie Ray Ruth, I believe it was, and another fella. And the film never actually showed, and this is like, as we said earlier, Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman in Unforgiven. It doesn't show you it. You just see him saying goodbye to his wife, getting in the van, and then you just see I think it's a real life news clip. From then on, I think it's all real clips. It's all real news excerpts that you find out that Ruth had actually shot Kyle and the other guy and killed them. And from that on, it shows you his full funeral, the procession, the memorial service, all the people that turned out, the bikers, the army, the Marines, the SEALs. I think it was actually held in the Dallas Cowboys. I may be wrong of the actual football team, but it was held in a big football team's stadium. I could be wrong about which one it was. Football teams in America, like not football as in the soccer, like the American football. So I can't remember the actual team, but anyway, it shows you the real news clips and how the guy was regarded as a hero. But it's a very, very sad thing in real life, the fact that he died helping people, and it just shows you that. I think the film does a lot. As much people want to talk about the controversy, I think the film did a lot to paint PTSD and really highlight it again. You see it from a lot of films, and people just go, "All right, nobody really wants to talk about it." But I think Clint Eastwood done a great job of highlighting that, and I think Clint Eastwood done a real good job of telling someone's story. I don't think the family can ever feel that. I mean, I haven't really seen any excerpts from the family, but usually with films, you always get the family or a close friend that has an issue. I haven't seen anything, and from reading Kyle's, I think I had a book, there was a book about Kyle. I think Clint Eastwood does a great job of painting it. I think he told his story respectfully, and he told it well. And I don't know, did this film win or anything? I know it was like a very high grossing, like, it was regarded, if you don't take in inflation, it would be one of the highest grossing war films of all time, at the time anyway.
I know it was definitely nominated for a bunch, might have won one or two technical things, but it didn't win any of the big awards anyway. But wouldn't say it's one of Eastwood's best films, but I do like it personally.
Yeah. I think it done a lot for Bradley Cooper, because I think I was weirdly thinking about this the other day. Bradley Cooper, I think his career has recently now took a jump, because I always felt that Bradley Cooper was this. I know Bradley Cooper says he started late, that his first real paid gig wasn't until he was like 30 or something, or 27. It was like that period, 27 to 30. So you could argue that he started later, but I feel like it took a while for him to properly explode. From being the pain in the neck family member in Wedding Crashers to now being this Oscar-nominated actor, which, again, I think Bradley Cooper done it himself a lot of justice by proving people wrong, because I couldn't see anyone else playing the role. I think he done a great job. And I think it's now credit to Bradley Cooper. You see him becoming the big actor now. He was A Star Is Born. I actually, weirdly enough, I never really wanted to see it. I watched it. I was amazed. Bradley Cooper was brilliant in it.
And we'd be remiss if we didn't point out he also directed A Star Is Born. So that just proves like the guy was stuck as the guy from The Hangover for years, but the guy has talent and like range. So it's good that he's getting to branch out at this point.
I think the sad thing I always get from Cooper is I feel like he was put in that bracket of he's just a very handsome gentleman. Like, I felt McConaughey get put in that period, and I feel like Jude Law was getting put in there for a bit, but now they've shown like, yes, we are handsome men, but we're also good actors. I mean, I'm happy enough that Bradley Cooper's done well. I'd like to see Bradley Cooper do more of these types of films. Now that he's tried his directing, hopefully he will.
And obviously, Eastwood is, I think, just turned 90 at this point, so it's a testament to the fact that like he's had such a long career and such a consistently successful career. But who knows, like, how many films he's got left in him? But hopefully, here's hoping he'll at least crank out one more great one before it's all done. And yeah, we won't be missing a great movie star and a great director whenever we lose Clint Eastwood, that's for sure.
I'd always like to think he'll be the Pale Rider, and he won't go. He'll just allegedly die, but then always come back to bring his classics throughout history. As Don Rickles had says, one of his tributes to Clint Eastwood, it's amazing. The man has no charisma, but yet seems to make so much money. Yeah, I do sometimes get a bit worried when I look at Clint Eastwood's age, but I think he's one of the most respected. He'll go down, I know the man's not dead yet, God forbid, but and God hopes that he has a lot more successful years of life. But he is, to me, he is one of the most renowned, well-respected actors and directors ever. But great mentors he had, Sergio Leone and many others.
Definitely stepped into the film industry and played every hand he could, basically, and yeah, succeeded in most of them. Like, of course, we haven't even talked about the fact from Mystic River forward, he scored a lot of his own films as well. So just a versatile fellow, basically, and yeah, great career. Here's hoping there's still some more chapters left to be told. So that brings us to the end of this mammoth two-part discussion of Clint Eastwood. I think last week's show was by about 10-15 minutes, by far our longest show. So
yep.
We'll see. This one's kept a bit shorter, I think, but yeah, I feel like we've devoted a very just amount of time to Clint Eastwood. So,
yep.
So I will say as usual, Robert, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for making my day, you punk.
And to everyone watching, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Who played Jaws?
Richard Kiel.
It was. There you go. I was correct in my weird guessing mode. It was Richard Kiel. There we go.